I believe we may be live. Sam says we're live. I don't know.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome to all of you watching live and asynchronously. My name is Chase Raz, and I'm from the Zilliqa Observer. I've been asked here today to host this particular AMA with the founders of PackagePortal, JG Whitley and Gabriel Cheney. JG and Gabe are going to be here in just a moment. But first, let me thank everybody who's responsible for pulling this together. If you have questions for the team, we're going to officially be taking any questions that you have right here on YouTube, also on the PackagePortal Telegram, and also on Twitter. If you are on Twitter and submitting questions using that particular platform, please use the hashtag AMAPP. Again, on Twitter, AMAPP. So YouTube, PackagePortal Telegram, and Twitter. Helping me with chat moderation, some of you already know these people, you love them already. Sam, one of the admins over at PackagePortal Telegram, I would say, Sam may debate this, but I would say maybe even better known on Twitter as Zillbillionaire, will be helping with chat moderation, and also a PackagePortal admin over on Telegram, Ruben, who many of you know as RMST1. So gentlemen behind the scenes, thank you so much for your operational support. This would not be possible without you. So let me go ahead and bring in JG and Gabe right now. Hi, gentlemen. How are you doing? How are you doing today?
Really good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I'm well as well. Look, thanks for doing this. Thanks for having this AMA. We are live on YouTube right now. We are live, I believe, just on YouTube. We'll have to do the airing later on other networks. But before we get started with the community questions, could you let us know, where is PackagePortal now in terms of development? What's the general state of PackagePortal? And if you start kicking us off with that answer, we'll have some time to get some community questions coming in.
Yeah, that's great. Gabe, maybe you can speak to the tech,
Sure.
and I can speak to the business side.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you, Gabe.
Good. Yeah. So I think, one thing to note here is, we've been talking about security. We've been working on security, but our team, we're a small team, and we actually are kind of part-time in PackagePortal. We're in a transition to be full-time, and so we've been working really hard on that. But the security stuff is like, we kind of see it as a distraction. We are trying to build a really cool contactless delivery confirmation platform, and so we're very close on that. We're hoping to ship a really important update for the security concerns this week, which should allow us, I'm hoping by the end of the week, or maybe 10 days at the longest, to turn on auto crediting again. Sorry about those conveniences, but again, we see that as a distraction. We're trying to get that out of our way so we can get back to building really cool features for this platform.
What's some of the nature of that distraction? What caused it?
The core of it is just misuse of the app. There could be lots of names for that, but I'll just leave it at that. People are just misusing our application. Our application is for, receiving your package and scanning it and providing your feedback, rating, and then receiving rewards for it. And so, initially we were doing port, now we're doing export. Lots of cool ideas we have for the future as well for rewards, for that incentive of providing that feedback to merchants and shippers. But so I think it's just people misusing the app, trying to scan.
Not necessarily, me and all of us on social media misusing the app. It's particular characters, if you will, right?
Yeah. So people trying to essentially, mine port, mine export, and maybe this is a good segue to JG. What we're talking about a lot this week is, it's also revealed a kind of, an unfortunate flaw in a lot of the couriers' tracking numbers, where people are somehow able to get access to real tracking numbers, other people's tracking numbers, for their packages. And so, that's part of why PackagePortal is, exists. Like we want to be a company that provides that third-party accountability to these couriers. And to us, like, why is it so easy to access these valid tracking numbers, other people's valid tracking numbers? So yeah, I think that's an important call out for us.
Yeah, JG, could you address that? Because it sounds like, look, when you gentlemen are talking about building, the logistics app and doing all of those things, it almost sounds as if the distraction, as Gabe is putting it, it almost sounds like that's as much of an opportunity in the long run as it is a current distraction. That I think in the logistics space, we've all kind of known this, that there's a lot that's, just your information's out there floating, your address, your name, your telephone number sometimes is attached to these things, all sorts of privacy violations. Is that remotely what you all stumbled onto, or are those completely different issues?
It's a good question. I mean, largely what we see is this is an opportunity for us to go onto the mainnet, move fast, and provide a service early. It exposed a lot. It exposed a few holes that we had in our back end because we didn't expect so much traction. And we spent a lot of time the last few weeks plugging up those holes rapidly and adding more security. But it exposed in the wider market of logistics as a whole, like Gabe said, shipping information is not super secure. And that's one thing that we can look to address in the future, as we continue to branch out, gain traction, get users. We're not looking to mine data just for us to go and sell it. The entire thing that we have built here is community based. It's all, you're from the community. Gabe and I, our employees are from his community. Communities come together and we've built this thing together. And the data that we are having users provide is not so that we can sell it like Facebook. It's so that we can allow them and empower them to own that data. Because right now, major carriers own that data and they charge you for it. And so lots of holes and flaws in the entire logistics space as to, the security, transferability, and possession of user data. And we want to put that into the hands of the user themselves and let them do with it what they will.
Let's talk about that for just a moment, because what's happening here behind the scenes, so everybody knows, is that, of course, we're taking questions, and as they start coming in, they are being fed to me. I am seeing some of them as well. Again, thanks to Sam and Ruben for operational support there. But JG, I think that some people watching may not necessarily know what PackagePortal is even designed to do, right? There's still a very large conception out there that, look, I'm being rewarded to scan my parcel that comes in. And, when I think about my own self and the people that I've onboarded to PackagePortal, I'm not exactly sure, and these are super bright people, but I'm not exactly sure that they share our history in the logistics space, and they may be saying, okay, why is somebody rewarding me with cryptocurrency for scanning this package? And then why, some of the questions we'll get to in a little bit as I see coming in, some of the different carriers and stuff like that we'll talk about, but why am I only being rewarded for some? I would imagine that your elevator pitch has evolved, over the past few months extensively. Could you walk me through the current version of the elevator pitch so that someone completely on the outside could maybe understand PackagePortal a little bit better than I scan, I get crypto?
Yeah, that's the stairwell pitch, right? I scan, I get crypto. The elevator pitch a little bit longer. We are decentralization for delivery data. We use blockchain to enable that, but we are essentially breaking delivery data out of the control and the silos that have been set up by major carriers. Like, I don't want to name a lot of major carriers, but you know who the major carriers are. They own all of your data and they own your product for the entire time it's in their possession. And what we can do is begin to break down that data, put it back into the hands and the power of those who generate it and who need it, the shipper and the shopper, or we can call them, the merchant and the consumer. These are the two parties who create value. One has to sell something and one wants to buy something. So they come together and they create a transaction. That's the value. But then a third party comes in to fulfill a service. They're just a third party service provider. My delivery company and every other one on the planet is a third party that comes in to offer a service. And they're paid a fee for that. But it has evolved over the years with the tracking system created by FedEx in 1974 or 5, a long time ago. It's evolved to now they have all of the power. They have all of the fees. They take your products. They jostle them about and do whatever they please with them. The box will show up damaged or late. And there's no recompense. There's no punishment or justice for the consumer who's waited extra time. There should be a discount. If you have to wait extra time, you paid X amount for your shipping fee and you should get it at this date. Well, if it's late, then you should have a recompense for that. And we can work all that in. We can bake that into this whole system to where there's just less power by this third party.
Thank you for that. And I believe that will help. That, again, our information is owned, our packages are being processed, and we really don't have a lot of transparency or say. And I think that's some missing information that some folks have. I do want to start in with a couple of questions that I and the Zilliqa Observer have gathered over the past 24 hours as we've been announcing this AMA, and then move into the community questions. But as I do this, I also have to acknowledge, thank you for choosing an independent third party to host this AMA. Thank you for letting it be me, of course. But the independent
for having us.
No problem. The independent third party is, of course, important to me in a lot of different ways because, I'm not going to hold back any particular questions. And there's one I want to get out of the way right now. If I'm that scanner, maybe I know about the data part of it. Maybe I just want the crypto. If I've been scanning prior to the switch to export and I'm owed port, when am I getting my port if I haven't received it yet?
I think, Gabe just mentioned in the previous statement that he had that the tech updates that we're pushing forward may be ready by the end of the week, 10 days tops. And at that time, then we should be able to begin resuming tokens without hindrance. Because I guess the foundation of what the issue has been, we should probably start with that as an answer, is just like we've been under DDoS attack, like you pointed out, for like 5, almost 6 straight weeks.
It's been about 6 weeks.
Yeah, since you guys, we got a lot of comments. Where's my port and what is going on? Why is it late? I've done the scan. This was a valid tracking number. All of the issues, they're very real scans, very valid tracking numbers, and we owe those users those tokens because we said we were going to do it. And, we like to do what we say that we're going to do and follow through. But we've been hindered. We've been hamstrung by these scammers and hackers who have found backdoors and holes and stolen tracking information like Gabe mentioned. And if we just continue business as normal, then for every 1 token we put out, then 10 will go to these scammers. And that creates a terrible economy because ultimately what we're doing here is keeping port safe. Everybody wants to know when they're going to get it, but you will get it. Please know that. We have every intention of reading the database that exists historically. We can look back for years to come and find out who had the 576th scan. Maybe they get something special in the future. We can do that, so we know who scanned what and when they scanned it, and we can credit them into the future for as long as it takes. But what we need to do right now is keep it safe, because if we give it away, then all of the value is depleted. The scammers don't care about the economy; they care about a quick buck, and they just want to dump it on the holders. And we designed everything about this platform to be front-loading its value to our holders who are here early. So if we didn't care about the project as a whole, then we wouldn't care about the scammers. We would let them collect, dump tokens out the back door, and then move on and take our profits and leave. But you can see very clearly that because we are absorbing all of this heat, the spotlight is on us. What's going on? Why the delays? It's for the purpose of securing the future of this platform and maintaining its value and keeping stuff safe, basically.
Well, thank you. We do have questions coming in. So what I'll do is some of the questions I've gathered through the Zilliqa Observer, can't even say my own brand's name. The questions I've gathered there, I'm just going to throw into the mix, but we have some great community questions coming in right now. So let me address these. Gabe, I believe you may be able to answer this one, but related to what JG was just talking about, right? These scammers are coming in, they're making all of these scans, DDoSing the system to the point to where you're having to scale up quite significantly. How are the fraudulent accounts being handled? What's the process of maybe identifying them, deactivating? What actually happens when somebody's identified to be one of these large playing scammers?
We have a few different ways that we ban them or disable them. I don't want to give a ton of details on that.
Obviously.
So we have a few different ways that we disable their accounts. Identifying them to date has been a bit manual. and we're hoping in the future that we can improve the like our ability to detect. But so what we've instead focused on though in the short term is just like removing the ways that they're automating their hacks, and so trying to close all those gaps like JG was mentioning. So that's been our focus in the short term, really, stopping those and then doing what we can manually in the back end to ban and disable accounts. And like I said, we're really close to, I think, a really good update that will make it really difficult for them to do those kinds of things. And as like JG said, we're hoping that will allow us to resume normal operations going forward.
One of the next questions coming in, and this is also one that, oh yeah, JG, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, can I just tag in on the end of that? We've also got that seed node, and so that gives us a really good ability to listen into the blockchain and query for data, for transactions, and all sorts of different interconnected relationships between these wallets. So if we find one wallet, then we can find all of those wallets, and then we can disseminate appropriately after that. It takes some time, but the blockchain is transparent. That's one other way that one other value proposition that we use this for, not just for the incentive for the scanners and the decentralization of the governance and all of these different value props that we have, but scammers can get caught. Those transactions live forever. So they're not going to get away with it forever because it's in the history books. They have actually recorded in the history books, in the annals of time, their crime. And so we may not need to press charges. We'll let justice run its course, but they should not be so cavalier about making crime evident on a blockchain, which is the beauty of a blockchain.
That's true. I have a few opinions on that myself, don't I? Just to help out, if anybody's here new to crypto, if PackagePortal has onboarded anybody into crypto, that seed node that you mentioned, that is a special, let's call it a server. It's a special communication point that enables you to communicate directly with the Zilliqa blockchain at a faster rate, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so that was one of the additions, one of the technical things that we worked really hard to get on early on. It wasn't the misuse of the app, it was just like the overwhelming scale. And so we did a bunch of work early on, including adding the seed node to handle the scale. So yeah. And
I think that led to some challenges in the communication, if I remember that time correctly, because at first it simply was volume. It sounds like that's what you're saying. It was volume. As soon as that was corrected, within, if I remember correctly, a matter of days or a week or so, that's when the DDoS began and almost invalidated, in a way, all of, maybe the wrong choice of words there, but almost undid all of those benefits, because then you were instantly back to being overwhelmed.
Yeah, exactly. I would say that the order of events is probably, the soft cap was removed, the market value went nuts, and then volume came in. And then once the volume came in, scammers were able to see that, follow that, airdrop videos were made, and the raid ensued from that point. But the feat that these guys pulled off in getting that seed node up in like a week's time or less, I can't remember how long, it's all a blur. March is just, but having that is major. There are not many projects out there that have a Zilliqa seed node, and we do, and we want to leverage that for the good of the economy. Again, so much has been lost on what we have accomplished because of this distraction, the security attacks. There's not a security breach. No user data was ever exposed. No privacy has ever been compromised.
That's reassuring.
Never any of that. They just found ways to come into back doors and maybe a window that we might have left cracked open, but mostly they just a full onslaught from every angle. They flanked us, and we couldn't put out fast enough. So it was better to just halt token dispatches altogether to prevent them from getting in, because again, we have the record books. We can go back and look. All these guys are good. They all get tokens. We can do that. It might take some time, and it is taking time. I'm sorry, we apologize, but we want to make sure that when you get those tokens, you maintain the value within our ecosystem that you are due, and it's not diluted and fully washed away because scammers have all of it. They can, take over the governance proposals and all of that if they have a lot of tokens. It's very important that we keep those out of their hands.
You mentioned something about how the price had gone very high after the soft pegging account had eroded, and I know there's been a lot of communication by third parties. But could you speak directly and clarify for everyone how much you control or do not control the price of port and export, both of those, because my understanding, and I believe the understanding of a lot of people, is that export is pegged to port, but then how much control do you have to quote unquote set price?
Yeah, that's a good question and an important one, because we have to say that we have no input, data manipulation, control over the market value of port or any token within our ecosystem. You can see the disclaimers on our website. We never promise that the token will be worth more or less, except for what we have stated on our website. There will always be a threshold of value that the user gets within our platform, and we will ensure that for the in perpetuity for the life of the project. You can always come redeem your tokens. If you want to take your tokens to the market, you're free to do so, but you just have to know the market is its own beast that we cannot control, and we can peer in, but that's another animal. And so we cannot, manipulate or control or have any sort of influence on that. As far as export, we do have a little bit of control, because we just peg that hard to a ratio value of port. So, as you know, in the proposal is 1 to 100. And in the future that will change. That'll become 1 to 10. There's also promotional campaigns we can do with the swap contract that Henry created. Is really innovative, I think, because now all of the value for export is driven to the company, to the project, to this platform, not on an exchange or out there in the nether realms. The value for scanning comes here, and then you can take that value, convert it, and go do whatever you like to with it. But we can control the funnel that way. That way we can block hackers and scammers. And some of the systems that we have coming in the future, it will be, security is going to be upgraded to the point where effectively if a scammer does get away with some tokens, then they become holders, because their address is not permitted to interact with our smart contract. We can approve or disable different wallets, and there's tons of value that we can have in having our own swap contract. So export is not tied to any market value, and the way that we can not set price but control that and ensure that is by creating a liquidity pool, which we did, and then making the value nil. So over time, over many years, I imagine some people could go into the pool and try to buy the fractions of export, but it would take a lot of time and a lot of zeal, a lot of effort, and it would not be fruitful. So we've driven all value to our swap contract.
There are two places I want to go with that. One for a quick follow-up from Gabe regarding the security element of that. Can you address anything in terms of what the upcoming, you mentioned upcoming security, and JG was just alluding to some of the upcoming, and I know that wasn't necessarily only about the app, but Gabe, can you address any of the upcoming security features, or is that sort of off limits because of technical reasons? Like, how much can you tell us right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can say, that we're going to introduce, reCAPTCHA as one element of it. But yeah, there's a bunch of other things that we've built in that we think will make it really hard. I don't think I want to talk about the rest of it.
Okay. And look, in fairness,
okay.
As a third party moderating this, I will say, of course, we'd love more information. We really would like to have more information. But when it does come to security, I think as long as the other questions can be answered, directly, straightforward, I think I understand that you can't give me the keys to the kingdom necessarily. Otherwise, risk letting everything in all at once. The other part of that follow-up I wanted to go to, and this is it for either of you gentlemen. You mentioned when we're talking about the market price, you don't control the market price, right? As soon as the SoftPeg account was all bought up, and you could no longer put that downward pressure on price to $1, the redemptive value of port. There are some other communications that have come out, however, and it seems like even in the white paper, and I'm seeing a lot of questions coming across the social channels right now asking about other exchanges, whether they're centralized exchanges, whether they're decentralized exchanges. So Binance, Uniswap, even being listed on places like CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap as sort of an extension of this question that's coming in. Is the plan to put export or port, let me just focus on port for the moment, is the plan to put port on other exchanges, and is there any timeline for doing so? If so, or is that also completely market driven?
There was a lot in that question. Yes.
Let's start with the exchanges. Is port coming to other exchanges? Because that's what we're seeing the most on the social channels right now
Yeah,
in terms of
I've
questioning.
noticed those too. Yeah, definitely. So we would love that. You know, we want to make port more available, more widely disseminated. That's always been the goal, is to get it out into everybody's hand. Everybody's not on ZillSwap. We came to ZillSwap first because I came from the community. I've been within Zilliqa for like over 3 years now. And we wanted to, again, front load to this community first. But the goal has always been to widely disseminate and distribute global reach. There's a lot of boxes on every planet, and we want to touch all of them, or at least, the lion's share of them. And I think that we can do that. And we'll need exchanges because we also have plans potentially in the future. There's different verticals we can use for payment processing, shopping. These tokens can be redemptive for other things. We can integrate with these carriers, with these shippers, sellers, anything that you can do on some of these other well-known apps that have to do with delivery and purchasing. We can effectively do it with crypto. And that's very exciting. But we did just get listed on CoinGecko. I can resubmit the application to CMC as well. That could be a start, And then with the Ethereum bridge coming over, we can wrap these tokens and move them over to the Ethereum network, some of them for Uniswap users and ETH users, which is very beneficial for the reach of the project. We can't stay locked within one silo. Again, I use that word a lot, the silo of the Zilliqa ecosystem. This is our platform. This is our concrete, our foundation. But we're building a big structure that needs wood framing and stucco and drywall and all these different materials. And in order to do that, we have to incorporate a lot of different integrations.
One follow-up question from that, it came from a different source, but is asking why was Zilliqa the place to build the foundation as opposed to Ethereum or any of the other chains, especially since we're seeing a multi-chain approach where multiple chains are required to get not only the foundation but also the walls and the roof, etc. Why Zilliqa as the foundation?
That's great. I think that's what led me to Zilliqa in the first place. I was asking that very question: who can support this amount of transactions, this amount of volume? We've got a lot. We've done a lot, and some of our scans, some of our users are bad, so our data is bad. But we have a lot of scans and a lot of users that we've processed on this network, burning through tons of Zill, over 1 million Zill. We've burned through registering users, updating wallets, sending tokens. In 5 months, we've surpassed every other metric that you can find within the blockchain or within this ecosystem, just about. And we're really proud of that. But it demonstrates not just the amount of work that we've been doing, but it demonstrates the scalability of the Zilliqa network. We have one seed node and 1 or 2 processors. One of the questions I saw is how will we scale out to process a lot? Like within shipping and logistics, you got to imagine there's about 100 million shipped every day, 100 billion in a year. It's more than 100 million in a day. There's a lot of packages shipped throughout the world. And so if we're going to touch a significant portion of those, the lion's share we would like, then we're going to have to process a lot of transactions. And in order to do so, we need something that's going to be cheap and affordable. We've spent a lot of money on gas. That million Zill, it's about $200,000 right now worth of gas that we've sold back into the future of the Zilliqa ecosystem as transaction fees. So it's it's not only the cost of doing business, but it is also the securing of future business. And so we're not opposed to continue doing that, but we would never stand a chance on Ethereum. One transaction to send one token or to register one user would cost us $40, and no business can scale with those sort of numbers, those sort of operational burn costs baked in. So that's why Zilliqa in the first place, and as a foundation, because of the interoperability that all these networks are working towards, it's really great for the ecosystem at large, because if blockchain is going to succeed on a massive scale, everybody's got to be friends. We got to work together. We can't have tribalism and we're better than you and you suck and all of this chest beating. We can't have that. We can work together. You can like this one a lot. You can love that one a lot. I got this in my house. I went and met Zilliqa and hung out with them in San Francisco. This is in my house. I'm a fan. However, that doesn't mean that I hate them. We can work together. And the guys that are building in this space and want to do something and collaborate, then we're all for it, because to further this technology into the reaches of the world, it takes cohesiveness.
I'll just mention too, give props to, the Zilliqa tech team. I mean, they have really helped support us, for all the other DApp developers out there. I mean, they've helped us with, auditing our contracts, to talking through the seed node, to, meeting with us in our, the weird time zone differences, and they've been really supportive. So I know that we didn't know that in choosing Zilliqa ahead of time, but we found that out after we built this foundation on them. So
you kind of sprung that on them as well, of saying, hey, we're going to burn through a bunch of Zil, we're going to do a bunch of transactions, help, right?
Yeah.
Let's build it mutually beneficially. I want to interject a question here, because we still have plenty of community questions coming in, but I also want to remind, before I weasel my question in, remember, if you do have a question, we're taking those on YouTube, on Package Portal's Telegram, and on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, please use the hashtag AMAPP to make sure we see it. Again, that's AMAPP. Going forward, I think a lot of the questions and some of the area we take this conversation will revolve, or at least involve, if it doesn't revolve around, export. So could you give a brief overview of what export is, how it stands in relation to this cryptocurrency called port, and because it's currently what we're receiving if we scan new packages, could you give us a brief intro into export?
Yeah, so export and subsequently import after that are both the rewards tokens that function as rewards tokens. We began with port first because it would help us distribute those tokens, get it within the community. But because of the market value there, the security risk, everything we've already talked about, we had to switch. We'd already planned to make the switch to export. So when you scan and you prove that you received your package, effectively what you're doing is providing a proof of receipt. It's proof of receipt token. But these delivery confirmations is what the industry calls them. They charge $4, $5, $6, $7. I don't know if you have that image, Chase, but some of the pricing information for a signature is astronomical. And
sorry, I don't, everybody, right now. I don't have that image.
That's okay. Yeah, we'll share them. We'll share them after the AMA. The driver is inconvenienced because he can't just leave a package at the door. He has to wait for you to put your dogs away, put the kid in the crib, and then come answer the door in your robe and your slippers and touch his phone, which he doesn't like. And then you've got to wait all day for him to show up at your house, whatever his schedule might be. So signatures are just, they're inconvenient for everybody. But on top of that, and the COVID issue, they're charged $5, $6, $7, and all of that money doesn't go to the customer or the driver. It goes to the carrier. So our incentive model involves tokens. Port was the first one. Export and import come after that. Port, we had to cease everything that we've already discussed. So export functions as our current rewards token for scanning. If you scan, it's redeemable within our platform for $1. We've got some merch. We'll share the link. Go to our website. You can see what you can redeem that for. Or you can just convert it into port. But that is the current rewards token.
So to get us to that current rewards token, it seems like there was the governance vote, the very first governance vote that port ever enabled. And that vote had to be conducted twice. There's a question coming through. If you could speak to why did that vote have to be conducted twice? And I think if I'm going to tack on to that question a little bit, because I do know from what I hear, from what gets channeled to me, there is the concern of, and why was the second vote so fast? What were the dynamics there? Was there any intent to slip something through, or was it a technical reason for the revote?
Yeah, it was definitely technical. The second vote was identical. There was nothing changed. And so the reason was because the quorum could not be met. The first vote was off of 20% of circulating supply, but it was taking measurements off of 20% of the total supply, or 10%, 10% of the total supply, which was 1 million tokens. And at the time, we only had about 849,000 in circulation. So quorum could never be met. If you looked at the ratio between provos or ship it and return it, who voted for it, overwhelming support. And the initial proposal was designed to end about 5 days before we made the implementation. So it wasn't a really big deal for us to just put up another one, give it a quick 48 hours, reduce the quorum supply or minimum required, and it passed, no problem.
So the second vote, the reason for the shorter window was simply because it was the exact same vote over again based on quorum issues?
Yeah, it was the exact same thing. We just wanted it to pass. We didn't want to have, like, sorry, my dogs are going nuts. I don't know if you can hear it. We didn't want to have, in the annals of history, again, this proposal that we made the decision on. We needed to enact export because everybody said, let's do it. The governance proposal technically passed, but throughout history, it would have looked like it failed. And we wanted to make sure that, 5 years from now, we could look back and say it passed, and these are the statistics. Here's who voted for it. You can see all of that. This wallet, that wallet, they said no. Right. These guys all said yes. That's really cool for the future of the project when we're looking back to that. So we just did it again.
And that's interesting, though, because it was looking at the total supply of port, which is not fully issued, as opposed to the actual circulating. Therefore, virtually no amount of quorum would ever really be met. There is an interesting question that's coming through about port and asking why it's not more like GISA in terms of governance, to where if I were to go buy port on the market, not that you should or shouldn't, but if I were to, I could use that port to vote. Why not a different model to where only port that's mined through scans could be used for voting purposes? I think that's a really cool question coming through social.
Yeah, that's a really cool question. I like that. We should highlight that one. The reason is because port has a market value. So the fact that you can go and buy it means that it can be accumulated much more. So in order to have a fair and distributed token amongst the population that has it, we wanted to do the scan for rewards. That's why we started with that, because it's easy. You scan, okay, you did that, you gave us some data, great. Here's some tokens, and now you have a position within our platform. But when the market value changed, we could no longer do that. We could potentially have no market value with port and then try to convince 10 million people to scan for nothing. But if there's no market value or no external tradability, and it's only redeemable within our platform, if they don't want what we have to redeem at the time, then it would be much harder to incentivize that. So port also is it's both. It's the one that exists as both.
But what about voting? What about voting? So, for instance, I can vote with purchased port and I can vote with scan unlocked port. Is it the mechanism that port was being distributed for the scan simply to put the governance token out there? Is that the reason that it wasn't limited to scanned only port? Right. So let me rephrase that. When you had the soft peg that was keeping the value at roughly $1, the actual redemptive value, if I went and bought that amount, I could then vote with it in the governance. Is there any reason that we wouldn't have limited it, right? That PackagePortal wouldn't have limited it to saying, look, you can only vote with port that's mined through actual scanning. Why does that make sense or not make sense for this case, or where are you at with that?
I mean, technically, that's not really possible. If you're doing a snapshot, you'd have to have two separate tokens to be able to know that this was mined and this was purchased. If you've got just the one token, I don't think that any technical platform is ready to distinguish the origination to the wallet from those tokens. So whether it came from a smart contract or it came from here, we can do that when we query the blockchain, but for a snapshot for voting, we cannot have all of those other all that other metadata included.
Thank you. That actually answers it. It's for you, Gabe. Maybe you can even speak on this a little bit. It seems like it's a difference between going on governance based on snapshot as opposed to querying the blockchain through the seed node itself.
Yeah, I mean, we don't control how that quorum is, that the snapshot system. We just submit whatever they have, whatever they support, and they don't support, like he said, like JG said, they don't support all that other metadata yet. Okay. Maybe in the future they will. I don't know. But
that does make sense, because for anybody who is on multiple blockchains, the governance portal probably looks fairly familiar, right? And so you're utilizing the governance portal as its capabilities allow you to use right now. Is that if I parroted that back to you, you would say that's a correct assumption or a correct statement?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's open source, and so you take a snapshot and you can read a balance, you can read a wallet balance, but you can't within that snapshot determine where the balance originated from. We can do it when we create the blockchain by looking at origination and transfer from and that sort of thing, but within Snapshot, you can't do it. And there's a lot of different voting mechanisms that are coming into play. You're familiar with the quadratic voting system that's coming with CARB. That's very interesting. Looking to read more about that. I think that voting systems overall need to be upgraded because it's easily manipulated. We saw that in the history of different platforms, where if you just buy a bunch, now you have the biggest position. And so the reason that we enabled scans to earn tokens was now anybody who doesn't have ZIL or any sort of position, disposable ZIL, not just ZIL, but disposable ZIL, that they can purchase this token in the hopes that they can gain a position within the platform. They didn't need to do any of that. They can go get some ZIL for gas, but we made them token holders from the reaches of Indonesia and Canada. You know what I'm saying? Polar ends of the planet. We have people earning this token, and now they have a voice. They can vote. It's not just people who had access to ZilSwap and had disposable tokens and they can accumulate and vote and control our platform and the governance aspects, but now we have a much wider net that we've cast for demographics of token holders.
And thank you for that. Look, that's one of these very interesting questions that piques my interest, so I could be there forever. But I want to be respectful to the other folks asking questions. So sorry, I won't parrot that one back again. Just to confirm, I do want to move on. There are some questions coming in, and these questions were presented early, even before we started. As soon as the AMA was announced, questions started coming in of this nature. Because of the security update that's already happened, I ended up with 2 wallets or more. That's sort of the idea of people going, I swear I'm not trying to scam you, but I ended up with multiple wallets. What do I do now? How do I get my account unlocked? How do I move forward? Do I pick one of these 2? Do I go create a 3rd account? I'm assuming the answer is no there if multiple accounts is a problem. But what do I do if I'm somebody who now has multiple accounts, accidentally or through mistake or through my own doing, but I want to be a legitimate user and it was in no way intended to scam anybody?
So you're saying multiple accounts or multiple wallets or both?
Let's go with multiple.
It matters.
Yeah, let's go with let's triage this a little bit. Let's talk about multiple package portal accounts first, because I can vouch for the folks asking this question. I had this happen to me completely accidentally. I ended up with 2 package portal accounts when I never intended to. So let's start there, and then we can move forward into the question.
Okay. Yeah, so part of the reason for locking down a device to having 1 account was that kind of those short term, to make it, like I mentioned earlier, to make it more difficult for the people misusing the app. So another aspect of this is we want to support all the customer support requests through the channels we already have. There's the Telegram channels, there's the email, but for the same reasons, we've had to work really hard at the scale, the volume on the technical side. The customer support team has had to as well. We have a lot of requests, so that's an aspect of that. Please just try to submit your requests to fix those. There are ways to fix those, I don't know. Maybe JG, you could speak to some of the ways that the customer support team has been determining that, whether or not we'll fix it or not. But yeah, that's my take. Yeah.
So 2 wallets, 2 accounts, 2 different things. If you've got 2 wallets, that's fine. One thing we wanted to do was enable you to be free. These are if you earn these tokens, we want them to be yours. Initially, we had custodial wallets, and we were going to use a platform like that. But we thought, you know what? Decentralize everything. Let them do it. If they're earning it, why do we need to house it for them? And now what we're working on in the future potentially is custodial wallets for carriers and shippers, so we can hold and lock tokens for them and for new coming users, because we want to, be an onboarding ramp to so many people who know nothing about it. So rather than have to go through difficulties of setting up a wallet, we may provide that option. But that speaks to the wallet issue. You can change those. Just make sure you update it. We're looking through some of the claims and the case files, and we see this user has not updated their wallet, and we can't read the database unless they give us an email. There's a second way we have to go and look. So just make sure you go and update your wallet. Tap on your initials, put it in there. If you've made 2 accounts, that's a different story. Part of that is our fault because we didn't have a forgot password link up in there, somewhat by design. But we didn't have that, and people would forget their accounts. Oh, let me just make another one. And that worked for a little while, but bad actors found out that it worked a lot. if they could script it. And so we had to shut that down. And if you had made two accounts like my niece or some of our family, then you're locked out. But as Gabe said, if you just go, email support at PackagePortal.com or talk to one of the admins on Telegram, where we're collecting all of those accounts and filing them away so that we can make the proper updates. But technically what you should be able to do, what most users should be able to do, is just go download the updated version, delete what you have now, download the updated version, and sign in with the method that you first signed in with. If that's Google, use that and only that. If it's Apple, only use that. If it's an email with a password, only use that, and don't try the other ones, because the new security measures wants to make sure that you do only what you do the one and first time for all time.
So support is, of course, still overwhelmed, I would imagine, but over time this can be resolved if they contact. That's going to be, and I want to be really clear about the two methods you suggested: contacting support directly at support@packageportal.com, and also the admins on Telegram.
Yeah,
yes.
both of them work.
Don't reach out on Twitter that way. Like, that's not what Twitter's for.
Please don't. No. I'll mention too, we actually are working on better ways to work with customer support as well. We are actively working on some of that. We're working on an FAQ, and so for some of the boilerplate issues that people might have. And I'll also mention, I'm hoping that we can support, like, if you sign in with Google and you also have an email password, that we're able to link those in the future. We just can't right now. But those are some of the features that I'd like to, support, but the security stuff is distracting us from being able to improve the user experience.
Sure.
So if you can, continue to bear with us on that. We think we're close. So I also mentioned, I don't know if this was one of the other questions, but we are working on a parallel project that will be even further downstream for security reasons, or for security improvements. And we're exploring even KYC for that, and so that might also help us to have more confidence in being able to enable things in the future.
I want to do a quick call out because, as we plan our last planned 15 minutes here, I also want to say that Lynn, one of the admins from Package Portal, is also now on YouTube, and I believe some of the other social channels helping to answer questions. So almost the whole admin team there. So Sam, Ruben, Lynn, thank you so much for the support you're offering there.
Thank you for that shout out for them. I got to shout out them guys, man. From when we had 300 members in Telegram, these guys absorbed like 17,000 in the span of 5 weeks, and they were on the ball, taking care of requests. That's a lot of growth to have your DMs just spammed on a daily basis, but taking the time to engage. So shout out to the admins. I see
you have a few more admins over there, don't you?
Oh, we got like 23. I couldn't even name them all for you. Different groups, different countries. There's like 15,000 members in the Indonesian group. I think there's 11 or 12,000 in the India group. There's a Spanish chat. There's a French one that's on standby. And our main official chat has like 17,000. And these guys have been A1.
So
yeah, we've had so much support. I just want to say my thank you as well.
Absolutely, and sorry for interrupting you there during that moment of appreciation. I will say, remember, we are currently on Package Portal's Telegram answering questions. We are on YouTube answering questions, and on Twitter, use the hashtag AMAPP. We are in our last 10 minutes here. I know the team has channeled to me that they're willing to go long. We'll see how that goes. I do want to get to more of a rapid-fire style of question here, if that's okay with you gentlemen, JG and Gabe. And that way, the team who's channeling me information on my screen that I can see other requests coming in that I don't happen to have on directly on my screen, just keep them coming, and we'll go through as fast as possible. Gabe, you mentioned KYC. Previously, I don't think we had been made to believe anything about KYC necessarily, other than it was trying to be avoided out of respect for the crypto space. But is KYC on Know Your Customer, right? This is for anyone who's new to crypto. KYC is a type of documentation you fill out when you're creating a bank account, your driver's license, right? Know your customer. Who is the person that we're doing business with? Is KYC on the table in the long run, or is that only for a separate thing down the road, like you mentioned?
Right now is really early, and I think we just talked about this like last Friday. So JG and me, we're in the very early stages of like exploring what that could look like. So another aspect of reason why we have really tried to avoid it is just the user experience of the app itself. Like we want it to be this really very simple, very frictionless experience, and so expecting a lot of the user up front, makes it loses that feeling. So that's another reason. But we think there is a way to add some security that won't introduce that friction in the app, but still provide that security. So I can't say much about it because we're still in early stages, but we're definitely exploring it, and we think it's going to be cool.
So it's not off the table, but we're not necessarily there.
Yeah, I would just say we're exploring it right now. We're excited about it though too.
I would just say to that point, KYC is required of an MSB, a money service business. We are not that. An onboarding platform such as Coinbase, Binance, the exchanges where you can turn fiat into crypto, that's when you got to have regulated KYC. We don't do that, so we're not required by law to do so. It could be helpful. It would have been helpful if we did it, but like Gabe said, it would have been a lot of friction, and it would have, we might not have had the growth. We might not have had the scam attempts also. So it was kind of a 50-50 give or take. But we wanted to give the user the ability to not have to go through all that because we're not a money service business. We are an onboarding platform for crypto, one of the few that is not a money service business, turning fiat into crypto. You just earn it with an action. So we're not required to do so, but we're looking and exploring different ways we can do that in a gentle way with a gentle approach and not ruin the user experience, but also not allow false and fraudulent actors to manipulate the system.
Thanks. So some of these questions, again, it may feel disjointed at this point. We just want to address as many of the questions as possible. I see a couple that, look, independent third party, I can answer for you. Can you scan your neighbor's packages? I'm assuming this is a one-word answer.
Yeah, don't do that. I guess that was more than one word.
Well, my one word is I think they're going to say no there, and you did say no and a few more words. Can you have more than one account? We already addressed that. Here's an interesting one. Staking, right? The current rewards, there's 10% weekly, and you've announced that ends in June. That was regularly scheduled. Concurrently with that, with export redemption matching, right? So if you hold port, for the people who redeem export, that amount is matched and distributed in various amounts across port holders. But there are some questions coming in about what about other types of staking where I take port or maybe export and I lock it up in a contract. Is anything like that coming in the future?
Yeah. We have a seed node, and we'd like to eventually in the future, get whitelisted for a staking seed node. But even, before that, we can have our own staking contracts. That's something.
But that would be staking Zill or staking port.
We'll see. We want everything to be stakeable, and
Right.
we want our tokens. If you could, like for instance, a nice scenario would be you stake some port and some GZIL, and then maybe something good happens. Combining the whole ecosystem, GZIL and port ZIL. In the future, we can do things on the ETH network as well. We can have our own staking contracts, and all of this is in the pipeline, but it's been pushed back because of these 5-week distractions. But yeah, definitely expect that.
So that is, I love the super exciting yet non-committal answer there, but all of that is pushed back. The 10% weekly is still happening until June for those who hold port in LP or in wallets. The export redemption matching is still, that's through the life of export, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then once the 10% in June ends for port holders, what comes after that? I know you've announced one thing throughout this year, but what comes after the 10% weekly ends?
Anybody who wants to go and read the export proposal, we've got the summer shipments spelled out there. That's going to be 500,000 port that's distributed over, summer shipments and fall freight, you could call it, just to keep the rewards thing going through the end of the year. Because we're all about rewards.
Support holders, not export to.
For port holders, export earners who convert that into port are also entitled to the same.
Let's turn our attention very briefly here to Amazon. Amazon scans are currently not being accepted. Is there any chance in the future that Amazon scans will be valid again?
Potentially.
Yeah, well,
Again.
we're open to it. I think that was one that we were actually weren't intending to accept them even initially. And so we I think we made good on that, or as best as we could. But there's an aspect too for us is that we're really trying to support businesses that don't own the entire end of the last mile delivery chain. I mean, we want to support that too. Amazon, we're definitely open to that. But I think that's an aspect of maybe our ethos is supporting all of these maybe smaller businesses that are relying on these couriers, and they have that dependency. And so that's another way I've thought about it is like Amazon, they've got a lot going for them. So let's focus in the short term. Let's focus on all these other parties, and then we'll see what happens with Amazon.
Excellent. Interesting question coming through here. Can different people in the same household, like a roommate, spouses who receive packages separately, can they each have an account? Like, could a parent and an adult child each have a separate account, or are you limiting to one per household, or is it one per person?
Yeah. Definitely not one per household. That's not a hard and fast rule. On the B2B side, when we do a business, we might employ a model like that, where there's just one device, so that the office space or the principal of the business gets to oversee that. But right now, family members can share. They've got to be unique codes. So if your aunt gets a package and you get a package, and then their nephew gets a package, then you can all scan if they're all different. Just because you share an address does not preclude you from using the app in concurrency with your family members.
Excellent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask, I believe, 2 more questions that I see coming through, and then I'm going to ask you a sort of open-ended statement, open-ended question to conclude on. And the first of the 2 questions that I want to make sure get in is there any immediate ability, or are we moving in the direction towards increasing the amount of export that are earnable per day? I get 3 shipments in. Could I foreseeably in the near future get 3 export per day?
Yeah, we'd like to open it up to a governance proposal. Once we have all the security updates pushed and we're back to resuming token dispatching, then that will be probably our second governance proposal that we'll put forward, and we'll just say, what should we increase the daily cap to? It could be a number, maybe up to 5. So if you got 2 or 3 packages, you can scan those and earn those, and that would accelerate the unlocking of port. It would accelerate the move into import, and just stimulate more use.
Excellent. And the last one that I'm seeing here, and I'm actually condensing quite a few questions into one here, but there are questions about what type of clients are coming on board. What are you planning in terms of sales team? What is there from the business side of onboarding customers, the shippers, as you mentioned, and the sellers, right? You've talked about e-commerce, you've talked about courier businesses. What's happening there to keep Package Portal really going, looking at potential revenues in the future for Package Portal in terms of the data that you're collecting? Can you speak anything to anything? Can you speak to anything related to the business operations and the onboarding of potential customers?
You did condense a lot into that question. Very good.
There are quite a few questions that are around that entire area, and
Yeah,
I didn't want to leave a whole category untouched.
No, it's one of the more important ones. It's one of the ones that I'm most excited about, because it speaks to the promise and the future of what we plan to do, which is just super exciting. Again, forget all of these distractions. Look at what we've accomplished. We have over 500,000 transactions on the blockchain network, and we've got tons of users, tens of thousands all over the planet, giving us shipping data. That alone stands as a valuable resource that we can use and learn from and craft different models. But initially, right now, what we're focused on is going to carriers, major carriers, and smaller carriers, regional carriers. There's 745 right now that we support, and we can have a conversation with every single one of them. We'll start with the bigger ones that have more users, and we'll give them the opportunity to come aboard and continue to provide these services. Because right now, contactless is necessary. These signature requirements that these carriers are still charging for. If you want to ship something that's, you know, $80, $90, you got to get a signature. You got to pay them, and they're accepting that money, but they're not fulfilling that service. And so our solution allows them to do so, but it also creates so much more opportunity. So, yeah, I mean, you know, it's open ended.
Well, that's where my open-ended question comes in, and I'm condensing a lot in here as well, because I know you all have exciting plans for the future, and helping us understand over this past hour. We've been running for 61 minutes, but I want to take us 5 minutes more. Running this time, we've really addressed a lot of the questions that I think are on the front of most people's minds. When am I getting my port? What's going on? What's the need for security? Why are these DDoS attacks happening? But what's coming next? And let me just ask it this way, as that open-ended. Can you give us a preview of what's coming? What's exciting you and your team, both Gabe and JG? Maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes each to answer that question. What's coming next? What should we know? What should we be excited about?
Gabe, you can go ahead first.
Sure, I can go first. Yeah, like I said, I mean, security stuff, I'm excited that it's going to allow us to not, the security concerns are as much of a distraction. And so the things that I want to focus on are making sure that we can fully support these shippers, these merchants. And so we, you know, one of the things that we haven't, that we'll do work on next after the security updates is how do we ingest like a pre-scan tracking number. And so, you know, I've already started doing some of the design for that. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about bringing some people on that will help us get in front of these. We're in active talks with multiple parties, and really excited about some of these connections that we're making. Yeah, I think that's it for now.
Thank you, JG.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think it ties in with the previous question. We've got carriers and merchants. Both of them like desperately need our solution, whether they know it or not. The carriers more so, because they cannot conduct business that they're charging for without a contactless solution. So we're perfectly positioned to capitalize on that. And so what's coming for me is meetings, lots of meetings and calls with, you know, decision makers and the powers that be, who can approve and integrate our solution. And we can, the first few that come on, we can maybe provide some custom catered features, but we're really excited to start that, because our real focus is merchants. Again, going back to the two, there's merchants and there's carriers. Carriers are the third party that have all of the control. We can circumvent them completely and go directly to the merchants, but because carriers are providing this service that's unsafe with, you know, contagions being transmitted, we'll go to them first, give them the opportunity. So there's that. We've got 3 sales teams, in one stateside here locally, one based in Europe, and another one is forming over in the Middle East. So that's real exciting, the connections and the networks that we're making. I've got friends all over the planet now, so maybe we'll go on, you know, not a vacation, but a work retreat to some country near you and come hang out. We've got some treasure hunts coming, physical, in the wild, real, where is my port? And
that'll be amazing. Something like geocaching, or
we'll see.
And that's coming a little bit later this year. So sounds like there's a lot of progress in terms of building a sales team, getting clients onboarded. Of course, it goes back to the acknowledgement that some of these challenges with the DDoS and the security, of course, those need to be in place prior to that point. So I want to thank everybody again for their time. JG and Gabe, especially, thank you for your time. But I never want to forget, the people who have made all of this possible behind the scenes. Thank you to Sam. Thank you to Ruben. Thank you to Lynn. I appreciate all of you inviting me as an independent third party to do this. So on behalf of the Zilliqa Observer, thank you very much. But I do want to do this. I want to leave the floor open to JG and Gabe for the very last word. I like to do that on my show. I'd like to do that here. What should we conclude with, gentlemen? I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah, I think I'll chime in with the thank yous as well. All the people that have supported us, you know. So, you know, it seems like we've given so much attention to the people misusing the app, but really there's so many people that have used the app correctly and are being patient with us as we have these growing pains. And then all the customer support people that have helped with that. And then I want to thank specifically the engineering team. Like we're a small team. We've been really part-time, nights and weekends hustling, and I guess one other thing I'm excited about for the last question is that we're going to be full-time soon, and we'll be able to, once we're full-time, like this team's going to fly. So I'm really, so thank yous all around again.
Yeah, I would just echo the same. Big thank you to our engineering team, Gabe included, for what they've done, foregoing meals and all sorts of things. I mean, that the phone is lighting up sometimes. The attacks and all of that was incredible. Zilliqa Core for coming alongside us and helping us out where we needed it in different aspects. The admin groups, you yourself, Chase. Let me say before we go, Chase is not a paid shill. We've never paid Chase any funds at all. We've just had a lot of calls like these, and he kind of gets where we are.
You'll get the invoice for this AMA after. Don't worry.
Okay, send me an invoice and I got you. But yeah, thank you to everybody who supported. Again, like Gabe said, to our users who are like good users and excited about the app. We are desperately sorry. Forgive us. We're working on it. We want to give you your tokens, and we'll make sure that we pull through on that. Just bear with us. Don't flame us on Twitter, because it looks bad. Don't flame us on the App Store. We could use some good reviews if you like it. If you're excited about where we're going, we're going to do some good things. And we couldn't be more excited or more confident in the space that we are. The networks and the things that are coming together and falling into place, it just seems to be God's grace and His favor, and we're going to capitalize on it.
Excellent. Thank you to PackagePortal. Thank you to the admins that volunteer a lot of their time to do this. Thank you to Zilliqa. And on behalf of all of us, goodbye, everybody.
See you later.
Yeah.
One last time.